Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's edition of Ask a Leopard Owner takes us to Cole and Emily on a Leopard 44 sailing catamaran. This Ask a Leopard Owner is really for those who have started this journey and are ready to press go button for their Leopard adventure. Before introducing Cole and Emily, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and in addition to being a Leopard 45 owner myself, I get to work with members of the Leopard community, helping to share their stories of adventure, curiosity, and exploration on their Leopard. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and will be published on leopardcatamarans.com in the coming days. In other words, don't worry about writing everything down. You'll receive an email to this video once it's published. To submit your questions at any point today, go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We'll do our best to answer all of them, but if we run out of time, we'll share an email address at the end to submit your questions. And lastly, there's a 2-question survey that will pop up after we wrap up today. We'd love your feedback so we can learn what things you liked and things that we could do better in future editions. With that out of the way, let's take a quick look at what we're going to cover. So first, we'll learn more about Cole and Emily. We'll understand their process from planning to purchase. We'll talk a little bit about their home to boat transition, steps they put in place to activate their Leopard dream. We'll spend some time talking about budgeting and what does it actually cost to live this lifestyle. And then we'll have a dedicated Q&A section at the end. So Cole and Emily, thank you guys so much for taking the time to join us and share your Leopard adventure with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you guys are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And thank you to the entire Leopard team for having us and allowing us to share our experience now after a year of Leopard ownership and cruising full time. We're excited to share that with all of you at home. And thank you guys at home for taking the time of your Friday afternoon to hear our experience. And hopefully we can answer all of your questions.
Absolutely. And like Chris mentioned, we are Cole and Emily Cruise, also known as the Adventure Cruise on all social media. Basically, the short story about us is we're a couple of 30-something-year-olds who really just got sick and tired of the rat race of life and decided we didn't want to wait till retirement to do the things that we desired in our hearts. So we quit our corporate jobs, we bought a boat, and a year later of boat ownership, over a year later, we've done almost 3,500 nautical miles. We've covered most of the Bahamas. We're currently in Florida visiting family, taking just a little time off from the boat, and then we are getting ready to head up to the East Coast and travel throughout the East Coast for the rest of summer. So we're so excited to be here. We hope to glean some of our insight and share that with you, and then hopefully inspire you a little bit along the way, because it's people before us who have been doing this journey for many years on YouTube. We are certainly not new or alone in the YouTube game. Those people have inspired us, so we hope to do the same for you today.
Yeah, and when Emily says the East Coast, she's meaning like New England. We're heading up to New England. We're going to talk a little bit about our future plans along later in a few slides from now.
And so,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask for folks who aren't subscribed to your social media, give us a flavor of the type of content that you guys publish.
Certainly, we are all about travel and adventure. I am a former TV news anchor, which I'll talk more about in a moment. I really love to share the stories of the people we meet and the places we go along the way. Sure, we're sharing our stories and the highs and the lows and everything in between, but we really love to highlight and focus on those people who really make our journey special. So we've tried to do that in our videos, our Bahamas series, which is quickly coming to an end, but we just have had the best time documenting this. And when we decided to that travel was going to be a part of our future, it was a no-brainer that we were going to start a YouTube channel. Like, I seriously cannot imagine doing what we're doing and not documenting it, for the simple fact of just the legacy that we'll be able to have and share with our family and future generations to come, for them to know how crazy mom and dad and grandma and grandpa were at one point in time in their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
So as Emily mentioned, Sarasota is home for us, but now, in truth be told,
home is where the anchor drops.
Home is where the anchor drops, and we are so excited to be able to say that, because this was a story that was a long time coming, and we're going to talk more about that and how we put the plan together to do that. But a little bit more about us. I'm actually from Central Florida. grew up in the greater Orlando area, but Emily is from Tennessee. While I grew up boating all of my life, most of it being on freshwater lakes, I was certainly, not a sailor, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But for Emily, she was even really into boating all that much.
No,
So
I would go to the lake here and there during the summer, but never quite the experience that Cole had growing up. So when my news career took me to Florida, and Chris, we can go ahead and push to that next slide. When my career took me to Florida, I knew I had to get involved with all things water. I started my career in Indiana, where I did 4 years, 2 years in South Bend, Indiana, and another 2 years in Indianapolis, where I saw in those 4 years more snow than I'd seen my entire life. So it was always a dream to live in Florida. It was the way I describe leaving the Bahamas is how I felt about moving to Florida. Those beach vacations were never quite long enough. And when I would go back home to Tennessee, it just didn't feel right. So when I had the opportunity to take a job in Sarasota, this is pretty funny and I don't share this that often, but I took the lowest paying job to come to Sarasota, Florida. But God works in crazy ways, because then I met Cole. I like to say I fell in love twice. First, when I, fell in love with the water, and second, when I met Cole, and obviously the rest is history there. So news career led me to Florida, and then you were doing construction management at the time.
yeah, so I was doing large scale commercial projects, $300 to $600 million projects all across the state. And for me, that meant I was leaving at 4 a.m. Monday morning to check into a hotel somewhere across the state of Florida, and not returning home back to Sarasota until Friday afternoon. So I was on the road all the time. And truthfully being told, I watched all these sailing YouTube videos because I really, really was captivated by it. But I never truly thought that would be something that I would get to do myself one day, until Emily and I first started dating.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, you have a story that you tell about your snow skiing friends.
Yeah, I had a group of friends that every year from college we go snow skiing up in Colorado. And one year I happened to watch a YouTube video, and I messaged everyone and said, hey, what about renting a catamaran in the BVIs instead of going snow skiing this year? And everyone kind of just laughed and was like, yeah, and what do we know about sailing? Nothing. So that was quickly shot down, and I never got to do that. So the best thing for me was watching all the sailing YouTube channels.
So then when we started dating, which was 2020, it was the height of the pandemic. Basically, everything was shut down. We were boating on the weekends. And I kid you not, it was 1 month into dating. I said to Cole, I really want to take time off of TV. I'm feeling pretty burnt out from all the pandemic stuff. Let's buy an RV, or let's plan to buy an RV and travel our country. And we talked about it, and we were going to do 50 states in 52 weeks, and it all sounded good. Until Cole said, what about sailing? Well, he's already mentioned, I'm from Tennessee. I grew up landlocked. I know nothing about sailing at this point in time. So he's like, well, let's watch this sailing channel. And you guys in the boating community may have heard of this channel, Sailing the Vagabond. They just happened to be the biggest one. And I fell hook, line, and sinker for it. I told Cole, I'm like, I can do this. Like, we can do this. I've been a journalist for almost a decade now. I've been telling other people's stories. Like, if anyone is qualified to start a YouTube channel, it's me. Let's sign us up. So that was 1 month into dating. And it was every single day for the next, year and a half,
Yeah.
2 years. First thing in the morning, last thing before we went to sleep, we were talking about, one day we're going to buy this boat and we're going to go here and do this. And then it all changed when we put a plan together, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what drew you. So lots of options when it comes to buying a boat, and probably a lot of people are considering, like, what should I get? So can you tell a little bit about why a Leopard, something that kind of drew you to the 44?
Yeah, so obviously first and foremost is budget, right? Like, everyone is buying a boat within their budget. And I knew that I really wanted one of the big three. And one of the reasons for that is obviously because our goal is not to just stay coastal. We want to cross oceans. And I felt that obviously the big three brands out there, cruising catamarans, have obviously proven themselves. They're worldwide. There's resources worldwide. But what we end up doing is going to all the boat shows, and I kid you not, it was, and we actually have this and we share this in one of our early on videos. We knew from the very beginning that we really wanted a Leopard, but we weren't sure that we would be able to make it work with our budget. And specifically, after going to all the different boat shows, and Chris, I can't tell you how, like, I knew the boat market like the back of my hand. I mean, I was researching day in, day out. I could recite some of the listings in my sleep, to the point where I was the worst employee. And it's embarrassing to admit, but my mind was not at my construction project. I knew more about the boats on the market than I did about the issues day to day on my construction project. And it was just, it's really sad that it got to that point, but I just was not there mentally. I was there physically, and unfortunately that's what pushed us. But I truly loved my career in construction because it was challenging and every day was different. There was a new fire to put out every single day, but it wasn't until, it wasn't fulfilling me. And so back to your question of why a Leopard, we just fell in love with two things, really: the fit and finish, as well as the community. And I'm going to talk more about that community and what it means to me. Because those out there that don't know, Leopard owners are kind of like Jeep people. Like, there's a saying, you just get it, right? And that's just kind of how what we've fallen into. And one of the reasons why it was just so important for us to find our dream boat, and we called it a year before we ever made a purchase, that our dream boat was going to be the Leopard 44. And of course, I would love to go with the Leopard 45 or the Leopard 50 or even the 48 at that time. But we just knew that within our budget, the 44 would work. And it was the perfect size for the two of us to do what we want to do and cross oceans.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about how you went from brick and mortar land-based life to living now full-time on the boat. So give us a little background as to how you did it. Yeah.
So first and foremost, as the slide says, we have zero sailing experience, to the point where the only sailboat I've ever put my foot on prior to doing this or researching was a Hobie Cat, maybe at a resort off the coast of Mexico somewhere. And even then, I don't even think that we ever went anywhere. So when I say that we had zero sailing experience, I mean zero. When we started, this researching and planning and all of that. That being said, I did grow up boating. So whenever Emily asked me, she goes, "Well, what do you know about a sailboat?" When we started talking about this idea, I said, "Well, I don't know anything about a sailboat, but it has 2 diesel engines first and foremost." And so that was kind of, my, I guess, ignorance going into it of, we'll figure it out along the way. And this plan did take us 2.5 years to put to fruition and to really come up with. But that being said, it's been pretty flawless, but there has been some hurdles moving from the home to the boat, and I'll let Emily talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is going to take longer than you think. So it actually worked out really beautifully. When we sold our house, we were able to rent back from the people who actually bought the home from us, which was incredible, because when Cole was talking to them about that, I'm thinking, well, why do we need 3 months to get out of the house and onto the boat? I quickly learned when we were having multiple yard sales. Would we have 2 or 3 yard sales?
3 yard sales, yeah.
Still donated a ton to Goodwill, but we didn't want to get rid of things that maybe we needed, and we didn't want to keep things that maybe we don't need. But when you're moving onto a boat, and this was the advice that was given to us, it's going to take you 6 months to a year to really get it refined. So I would say out of all of it, the most stressful part was just moving onto the boat, because you are downsizing significantly in your space, especially for us.
And I didn't feel like I was a pack rat by any means.
No, not at all. But when you're moving from a 2,000 square foot home to, whatever our square footage is now, which is significantly smaller, you really have to get smart with storage. I don't like clutter. I mean, some people will move all their stuff on a boat and it's just too much. So that was really hard to figure out where everything goes and putting it away. But now a year in, I feel like I'm finding space now that before I didn't even have, which is pretty great. I feel like we've got it
And
nailed down pretty well.
we're gonna purge one more time
Yeah.
while we're on the East Coast of the US. But that being said, like no one spot within a boat is the same shape or size. So it really takes some time to really understand where you can put things, how often you're going to use a specific item. You know, it's a pain in the butt to get underneath the forward guest, port bed, but there's a huge amount of storage underneath there. So it's what items can we put in there that we don't need to touch, but once every quarter or once every, 6 months. So that was really big. And to be quite honest, you need so much less than you think on a boat. Like
we'll wear the same outfits like a couple of times if it's not dirty.
Yeah. I mean, you truly don't need all that much stuff to live this lifestyle. And I say that as I was not a minimalist beforehand, but I find ourselves to be that now.
It's so freeing too to have less stuff, to get rid of all of that stuff that's no longer taking up space in your mind. It's really freeing. So we've adapted to that. I feel like really nice.
We have. One of the big things that we learned during this process of transitioning to the boat, though, was that the dock is a trap. And I say that very seriously because so many people buy boats and they move onto the boat at a marina and the boat never leaves. Like people get comfortable being plugged into electric, having water at their ready, and they never truly leave the dock. And we learned that right off the bat. And there were so many people that you talk to, they're living on a boat and you're like, oh, where are you guys heading next? Oh, well, we're not sure. We're not quite ready yet.
It's a lot of work to get the boat off the dock. And we're like, it's not cheaper to live on a boat at a marina than it is a house. And also it's depreciating. And also stuff is growing on the bottom. So
yeah,
it was very interesting. So it's never going to be the right time. And that was a little hard for us too. When we left in November, we weren't quite ready. It's like, oh, one more week. We need to get this organized or get this fixed. And finally,
I told Emily, we're leaving tomorrow, whether we're ready or not. We'll figure it out along the way. Yeah. And honestly, that was the best thing we could have ever done.
It's amazing how you adapt once you just leave. So the worst thing you can do is buy a boat and let it sit at a marina and deteriorate.
Yeah.
Did you have, when I went through the process of mine, and so I'm trying to lay the groundwork for like a bit of an emotional roller coaster when you go through this journey. So I had to wait, I don't know, 14 months or something for the 45 to come. And I went through this cycle of like, oh my gosh, I bought a boat. I'm so excited. And it was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I just bought a boat. And then it finally got to be like, oh, this is great and wonderful. And I love it. So similar journey for like, I'm just trying to prep people who are thinking about this. Like if that happens, completely normal, everything's fine. Did you guys have the same or different experience?
We actually have that on a couple slides from now, but to go ahead and answer that question, absolutely. Like there were mornings I would wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and I'm like, what have we done? Yeah. Or wake up first thing in the morning and I'm like, where am I? As I'm looking around on the boat, I'm like, oh my goodness, like we did this. This is nuts.
Unfortunately, this boat buying process is 100% a emotional roller coaster from start to finish. And I truly learned during this process. Now, we did not use a broker to purchase our boat. We actually were very lucky, and we found it in a private deal. But that being said, I learned and now have so much more respect for brokers that are selling boats, because just from the purchasing aspect of making offers and going back and forth and getting the surveys done, and then once you have the boat, you're like, wait, I have to get it from point A to point B. And then I have to have in point B, I have to have a place for it. For us, that was Sarasota. We bought the boat in Texas, and oh wait, now we have to get it there by this date because hurricane season starts. And there's just all these different insurance, and everything is 100% an emotional roller coaster until the very end. And well, even now,
then we went through Hurricane Ian just a couple months after getting the boat, and that was such an emotional roller coaster.
So there are certain, I say all that because using a broker certainly helps that emotional roller coaster in purchasing. But even then, thereafter, you still have to prepare yourself that, hey, you have to go with the flow. And you've just kind of got to roll with the punches, because some things happen that you can't, they're out of your control, whether that be finding a marina slip and then the slip not becoming available, or whatever the case may be. There are so many different, it's just part of boat life, really.
Yeah. Number one
And I
thing
think it's
about life, you have to be
it's a
flexible.
perfect segue to this. This when we're doing the run through of this earlier in the week, I'm like, oh, this is great advice. So walk us through what this means for you guys.
So before getting into this, we said we were going to do this for 2 years minimum. And this was actually advice that was given to us. And some of the best advice I think that we've gotten, because that first year, I mean, granted, we've just told you we have no sailing experience. We have never owned a boat of this size.
I mean, let me tell you this. The biggest boat that I owned was a 25 or 27 foot, depending on if you included the swim platform or not, center console. So we went from a center console to a 44 Leopard with a 23/7 beam. I mean, we jumped very, very far with our boating experience. So
exactly. So no sailing experience. Granted, we also just got married 3 months before buying the boat. So there's a lot of newness here. So we told each other, when we go into this, we're going to go into it with a 2-year commitment on board. That first year, you're really learning and figuring things out, how to work together, how to communicate, how to sail the boat. What a concept, right?
yeah.
And then by that second year, hopefully things are really running smoothly. But even though we're not at that 2-year mark all the time, we check in with each other all the time. And I think that's really important if you're doing this with a partner or spouse or whatever the case may be. I think it's really important to check in with each other. And how are you doing? I mean, when things break, and let's just be honest here, things are going to break. If you live on a boat, like, it's a boat, it happens. That kind of can get you down. We also got the advice that it's the highest of highs and lowest of lows, and not too much in between, which we've also found to be true. So just being in tune with each other when things are going wrong and when you're having issues, so you do stay on top of it and you don't burn out, because we have been told the number one reason people burn out is because of when they're in remote places and things are breaking down and they can't fix it. So going into the boat buying process, acknowledging that I'm going to be on this boat and one day my AC may go out or the generator may stop running or whatever the case is, just knowing I'm going to have to be flexible to fix that, because the reward when it's fixed is so much greater. When you wake up in the morning and the water's complete glass, it's a roller coaster, and you have to always be on the same page.
And Chris, one of the things, being that we're so vocal on social media and TikTok, all the whole 9 yards, one of the questions we get all the time is, a lot of times it's coming from one partner or the other saying, hey, I'm all about this, but my partner isn't so much, they're not convinced, right? And thankfully I wasn't, I've never had that issue, because I said to Emily, let's do this. And she's like, when can we go? But I think it's really important that you have to communicate that with your partner, of like, if someone's on the fence of like, well, am I going to like this? Am I not going to like it? Commit to the 2 years. And at that 2-year mark, then make the decision. Okay, we did it. We've got the shirt. Now is it time to sell it, or is it, or do we continue going on? And for us, we're over a year into this now, and we are pretty well convinced, and we haven't made that 2-year. We haven't got to that 2-year conversation yet, but we are pretty well convinced that this isn't going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah. We've also always said that we would never lose the marriage over our boat. If it's not 100% from both sides, then the boat has to go, as hard as that may be. As much as I know I love it, if Cole decides like, hey, I can't do this, we have to make changes, because first and foremost, we went into this and as a married couple, and that's the most important to us. But thankfully it seems to be working out really well, and we love it and expect this to continue for a long, long time. To
talk more about our future plans, so we bought the boat in Texas, we brought it to Sarasota, we've now gone all the way around Key West, and we have did all the Bahamas. We originally said that we were going to be in the Southern Caribbean this year. We got to the Bahamas and it was like glue, like we just stuck. And that, kind of looking at that, we're getting ready to head up the East Coast to the New England area. with the intention of being back in the Bahamas first of the year. And our original thought was, oh, we're only going to do a couple. There's like 5 more regions of the Bahamas or islands that we didn't go to. So we're like, oh, we're going to hit those 5 islands and we're going to keep on moving south. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, wait, the Abacos were so much fun. We enjoyed it there. Spanish Wells is so much fun. We enjoyed it there. We've been to all these places now. We know where the anchorages are. We've learned,
contacts.
we've met locals. Like now it's like, well, wait, when we get to the Bahamas, are we really going to want to leave again? Like, so that 2-year minimum commitment goes by so fast, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make.
So fast.
And while we would like to continue moving south and really, fostering the culture and learning and seeing all these different places, there's so many places in the Bahamas I want to go back to this coming year just to see a second time. So we'll see how our plan is always changing. And that's part of boat life as well, is that you just have to be flexible. There's only truly one boss, and that's Mother Nature herself. But our goal and the reason why we bought a sailing catamaran is to cross oceans. We really, really want to cross the Atlantic and or the Pacific. Originally, our conversation was that we wanted to go to Tonga. That was like our big bucket list item. And now we're looking at pictures of Greece and we're like, wait, we could go across the Atlantic just as easy, or if not easier.
Basically, we want to go everywhere.
We truly want to take this boat all around the world, and we are not sure how long that's going to take, but we're here for the journey and excited for that.
Yeah.
And folks will have an opportunity. You will be at Annapolis, right? And if folks want to connect with you in person, there's some opportunities coming up.
Oh my gosh, yes, we'd absolutely love that. So we will be first and foremost, and one of the reasons why we're going up to New England area with the boat is we'll be at the Newport Boat Show. Unfortunately, I don't think Leopard has a booth there, but we will be at the Newport Boat Show for the YouTubers booth. And then directly after, we'll be in Annapolis, and we'll be spending a lot of time in the Leopard booth, specifically, or certainly during the owner's party, and at the YouTubers booth there in Annapolis as well. So we're excited to meet anyone and everyone. Please come and say hello and tell us your story, share your story with us.
Absolutely. So then after that, we'll be making our way back down the East Coast, and then, like Cole already mentioned, cross back over to the Bahamas, and to be determined how long we stay there.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that thing that keeps so many folks in the marina to never go, right? So
that 4-letter F word, fear.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we talked a little bit about this a few moments ago, and really accepting the process. When this was 2.5 years out, it was easy to get, I guess, blinded by all the glory of all of it and all the glitz of what it might be. But as we got closer and closer, and we talk about that emotional roller coaster of buying the boat and really asking ourselves, are we really doing this? We're in our early 30s. Of course, this is a huge financial risk for us, but the bigger risk for us at the end of the day, and this really came out of COVID and changing our way of thinking, the biggest risk was not going, and one day maybe not being able to. A lot of people don't know this, but Cole was in the hospital with COVID for 9 days and was very, very, very close to going in the ICU. And we already had this dream before that, but the first thing he said to me after he got out of the hospital is, we're buying the boat, because tomorrow isn't promised. And I think so many people just live their life saying, oh, well, one day I'll do this, or one day when I have enough money. One, you're never going to have enough money ever. You just have to go and do it. And that's really where our thinking changed, to not just be like, okay, we're going to do this in a couple years. We actually are putting pen to paper to do that. But at the same time, it's scary. It's still scary. We've had the boat for over a year now, and a storm comes and you're scared. That's part of it. And really what you like to talk about is being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah. So every night you drop your hook, your anchor, and you're on that, in our case, 3/8 chain. And that's your lifeline, right? For the night, you have to be able to go to sleep and sleep comfortably in sometimes uncomfortable situations, whether it's bad wind or bad swell, whatever the case may be. Having a catamaran guys, I can't tell you, like when we're in anchors and we look our anchorages and we look out and we see the monohulls just going like this, like we are so thankful on those nights that we have a catamaran. But even then, like you just have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And it kind of goes without saying, but you're living this adventurous lifestyle on a boat. And guys, we're speaking directly from our experience. Obviously, there are people that can afford and do this on a daily basis, where they go from island to island and they go from, you know, 5-star marina to 5-star marina, and that's totally cool. And you still get to see all the amazing places, and you get to do all the amazing things, and you get to live this adventure lifestyle from the perspective of the marina. But at the same time, that wasn't for us. And these are calculated risks, right? And I want to get further into that. I mean, at the end of the day, and granted, the market may not show this in recent history, but a boat is a depreciating asset. And you have to understand that, and you have to understand what type of consequences you have when you drop the anchor in this particular anchorage. You know, is the anchor going to hold, or is the boat going to, get damaged? I mean, backing into a marina can be a $10,000 mistake if you are not careful. So there's just so many different calculated risks, but also consequences that as long as you understand them going into this, it's not ridiculous. It's not crazy. And contrary to what a lot of people, land lovers, would say, you haven't lost your mind if you are wanting to buy this boat, because the highs are the highest of highs you'll ever see. At the same time, the lows are the lowest of lows. It's 95 degrees and your generator is not working and your AC is not working, and you are just sweating, cats and dogs. And next thing you know, you're upside down in a bilge trying to get it all working again. Like, it's not fun in those cases, but the fun parts far outweigh the negatives.
100%. And the last thing I don't think we've touched on yet is living full time. We were living for the weekend. How many people actually just heard this a couple days ago when we were somewhere running errands? The lady says, "Oh, it's halfway through the week." And I'm like, "Oh, it is? Oh, it's Wednesday." Because life isn't like that anymore. And I don't think we were created to live 2 days out of the week. I think we were created to live every day. And that was the question we kept asking ourselves, is how can we create a lifestyle? How can we create a business where we're living every day? We're not counting down. We're not wasting our life away to Saturday and Sunday until when we're 65 and can retire. That just, for us, really felt ridiculous, especially after coming out of the pandemic. So putting that plan in place to figure out how we can do it and how we can do it right now.
So that's a perfect segue into how you guys did it. So walk us through it.
So you want to buy a boat, right? So in a couple of slides, we are going to talk about 8 ways to help you activate your Leopard dream.
Yeah. So number one, accept that it's never the right time, right? And we realized that early on, and I'm very thankful that we did. Of course, I would have loved to have been a little bit further in the career and had the bank account to where I didn't have to worry about going into marinas. But you know what? How many times do we hear people say, one day I'm going to have this, or one day I'm going to do that, or one day I'm going to, the list goes on and on, right? One day that might not ever come. So that's where we just accepted the fact that, you know what, and it certainly helped after, having COVID and being that close to the ICU in a ventilator, was that I got out and I'm like, you know what, we're doing this. Like, we're going to figure it out. And so we're going to talk more about how we figured it out or how we are figuring it out. And in the next slides.
Number 2 is make a list of goals. This is so important, and we feel very passionate about it. We actually had some other cruisers tell us, you need to put a date on the calendar for when you want to leave. And we thought, wow, that's so interesting. And we really stewed on that.
It's common sense type of stuff, right? But at the same time, like, you just have to do it.
Exactly. So we got home and we really stewed on that and thought, okay, realistically, like, when could we leave on our boat? So we made a list of goals. Again, like what Cole said, so simple. You see me crossing off something there. So the first thing was get married. That was very important for us. And then the second thing was after the house went on the market. And we literally had a list of goals down to the very end there of when we were going to set sail on our own boat.
Yep.
And so what's also, I think, equally important is the written and spoken word. I talk about the goals, but we talk to each other all the time about what it would look like to be on our Leopard catamaran and what it would look like to be sailing off into the sunset or diving into the clear Bahamas water. Like, we really had it in our mind that this is what we were going to do, and no one was going to stop us. And so I think that's critical to just put yourself in that position of what that's going to be like, because that list kept us so accountable for when we had naysayers telling us how crazy we were, or when, you know, we really started to doubt ourselves and wonder, well, are we crazy? You know, we're trading in this cushy careers and nice house and comfort and all of these things for something that floats and appreciates. Like, come on now. So that was huge for us. And then one more thing I want to talk about, that we set a word for the year.
We do this every year.
We do this every year. And last year, our word for the year was intention. And so everything we did was with intention. And we talk about this, I think it's either the first or second YouTube video we put out. Our year of intention is buying this whatever, taking us closer or farther away from what we want, which was the boat. And then this year, now that we have the boat, it's the year to build. We're building. This essentially for us is a startup business, which we're going to talk a little bit more about income in the coming slides, but make that list of goals. A dream is just a dream until you put it to paper.
Yep. And I really like this next one too.
Yeah. So figure out your why. And this, all of these things, like, to me, I just read them. I'm like, oh yeah, it's common sense. But until you truly like look at it and you truly, you know, practice it, people don't do it. And so for us, it was, what is your why? So when Emily came home and said, I'm done with COVID, I'm done with politics, I'm done with the media, like, I just don't want to do this anymore. We like looked at each other and we're like, well, why? Like, what do we want to do? What is it that we want to do? And the answer for us was, we want to travel and see God's beautiful world by making and still make a career out of it and make money out of it, to where we can still have our retirement. And I say that with air quotes because retirement for us is, you know, doing what we want to do. But
so technically we're retired now, but we're working harder than ever.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but that being said, like, it's just, what is your why? You have to really ask yourself that. And as partners, we have to be on the same page as to what that why is.
Absolutely.
So this part is the hardest part, in my opinion, of doing this whole thing. And for me, it actually was easy at the beginning, and then it kind of, as things went along and we got closer and closer, it became harder. But I mentioned to you guys that I was in a hotel Monday through Friday working on the road in construction management. And one night I just pulled out the good old Microsoft Excel. And I just started plugging in numbers. I had been researching the market, and I knew what the type of boat that we wanted would cost and what that would look like. I obviously knew, and we'll share more about this later on, but Emily and I had zero debt other than our mortgages. And so we knew that we had great credit and, you know, the whole 9 yards. So we start talking through this and really putting a plan together of how can we financially make this happen. And what we have is 100% a startup today. And we'll talk about our word of this year is the word build. We are building. But that being said, everyone's situation is a little bit different. And if you literally start putting pen to paper, as we just mentioned earlier, you can figure out how to make it work, because there are so many different ways to skin the cat, as they say, right? And it's not impossible. So I truly believe that anyone can do it, especially today with the means of working remote.
I'm excited to dig into detail on this next one a little bit later in the presentation, but talk a little bit about, and you actually already touched on it, but what do you want to say on this slide?
Yeah, so budget is obviously, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? And we're not all billionaires or millionaires or anything like that. In fact, we get a lot of naysayers on social media, like, oh, they have that nice Leopard, they must be rich, or they must be, what do they say? Like, trust fund kids or something like that. Like,
you know, it's just so funny seeing someone and just judging someone you don't know only because they have a nice boat. So they see this nice boat and, oh, they're trust fund kids, or they do that, or they do this. They don't take into account that we worked our butts off to have everything we have and continue
and just
to
made
have
good financial decisions.
Right. And number 5, one of those is getting on the budget.
And so when we talk about, last year, our word was intention. It was whenever you're pulling into that Starbucks drive-through, is buying that cup of coffee for, $9 or whatever it is that going to get us closer to what we want as purchasing this boat? And the answer was no. So every purchase we made on Amazon, every purchase we made throughout, the entire time of planning this was with intention. And it was based on the budget in which that we knew that we could achieve if we stuck to it. So finding that budget that works for you, but also understanding the budget, finding the budget that works for you to get you to where you need to be to make this purchase, but also understanding the budget that you need to keep and a realistic budget that we need to keep while living this lifestyle. That is definitely a hard one, but it can be done easy. And we're going to share a little bit more about that in this next slide. So
this is your bread and butter. I will never forget when Cole came home and said, babe, I've got it figured out. I figured out how we can do this. I made the spreadsheet. Look at this. Here we go. I was just blown away. Real quick, I want to say this. It's funny because I like to say that without Cole, this would never happen. This would just be a dream in my mind. But without me, no one would know about it because my skill set is obviously the PR and the marketing and the media. And you are very much like the doer, put pen to paper. So I feel like we work really well in that aspect. So take it away with the budget.
Yeah. So if you guys take out your phones and scan this QR code, I put together a sample budget for anyone and everyone to use. This one is based off of a $1 million Leopard 45. And I just kind of kept numbers pretty simple, but I believe, and based off of our last year of living full-time on the boat, that these numbers 100% make sense and are a great budget to start with. I say that because every single person has a different means of living. We've met people that, what is going on there?
People are scanning the QR code.
Oh, that's
way to go, guys. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm trying to mute my thing here.
Every single, we can turn this off.
Stop.
There we go. Well, anyways, every single boat owner has a different way of living. We've met people that are doing this on $5,000, $5,000 boats, to people we've anchored next to $20 million boats and everything in between. So I want to preface this and say that this is just an example and based off of the comforts that we wanted to have on a boat, as well as how we spend our money. And I think it's very realistic for anyone and everyone to use and to really plug and play as they go through it. So just to kind of give you an overview of our financial situation and spilling the beans there, Emily and I both had, as we mentioned, our own careers. We had done very well. In fact, we both owned our own properties. So that was really big. And neither one of us had any credit card debt. We both had credit scores over 800, and we both owned our vehicles. We weren't paying on our vehicles at all either. So we were very, very fortunate to make good financial decisions early on in our careers that put us in the position to be able to spend $300,000 initial cash outlay on our boat. Our boat is valued at $600,000, and between putting down money on that boat as well as getting the gear, guys, you can spend crazy amount of money on just getting your boat and getting the gear on your boat. Like it's crazy how much money you can spend on it. Sometimes Emily would nudge me and be like, do we really need that? And just safety gear alone, the EPIRBs and the life jackets, and I mean, just safety gear alone, the stuff that you do not want to skip on is very, very expensive. So, you know, you can go anywhere you want to go with this budget, but we stick to about $10,000 a month as a monthly operating cost. And some people might look at that and say, wow, that's crazy high. I want to be able to live this lifestyle sustainably for years and years and years. And I want it to not I don't want to have any major surprises. Okay. When we hit the dock the wrong way and it cost me $5,000, I want to have that money set aside so that I can fix it, because at the end of the day, things are going to happen, and it's just a matter of time, and you have to accept that going into this lifestyle. So we try our best to budget $10,000 a month as an operating budget. That means that we're putting the best bottom paint on the boat. We're not skipping on our yearly maintenance. That means we're getting the boat detailed professionally in between us trying to keep up with it.
Which means our life raft needs to be serviced while
yeah.
we're on the East Coast.
Right now, we have a life raft that needs to go to be servicing. And guys, let me tell you, it's almost worth buying a brand new life raft than it is to get them serviced. So there's just all these additional costs, and you just need to budget for them. And I truly believe that this budget is a great example and certainly a good starting point for anyone that's looking to make a purchase.
Yeah, and this is great. It's one of the most commonly asked questions that we get doing this series is, how much does it cost? And so appreciate you putting this together. I think it's a great tool for folks to use and just go into it eyes wide open. So when things happen, because they will, hopefully it's a little bit less surprising. I want to do a couple questions that have come in on the chat, kind of lightning round, and then we'll hop to this number 6 here. But
yeah, for sure.
The first one is around insurance. It's funny, I just renewed my insurance just today. I sent the money out. Was it hard to get insurance at the beginning? A little bit easier now that you have some time under the keel?
I can only answer this on our personal experience, because I went to all the boat shows, and every time you talk to someone that sells insurance is the hardest thing in the world to get. And you have to do it very specific, and you have to have this huge boating resume and all these hours and stuff like that. Guys, I'm here to tell you, it wasn't that way for us. Insurance was very easy for us to get. It's just a lot to swallow. And what I mean by that is it's not your car insurance, not your home insurance, where you pay it every quarter, or you pay it every, twice a year.
They want it lump sum.
They want it up front at the beginning. And our first year of ownership was like $9,000. It just went up to $12,100.
Yeah, mine's 12 too. I was like, but I haven't had any claims, and I have 10,000 miles. What's going on here? So in that budget that everyone's just scanning there, that shows for 2% on your insurance. I 100% believe that is the right number. It really 2% value of the boat is where insurance really seems to be, and we've priced it out quite a bit. And there's so many different ways you can go with insurance, and all these different carriers, they want different things. Obviously, you have to put a hurricane plan together if you're going to be in the hurricane belt. You can get insurance for anything. You just got to be willing to pay for it, is what I've learned. Yeah, that's right. So tell us what this means. Talk to your people, but don't talk to everyone.
Whew. So we lost friends over this, telling people we were going to buy a boat, and we were going to.
We lost people who we thought were friends.
Yeah, lost people who. Yes. So one of Cole's friends told him, "Why would I invest in our friendship? You're sailing to Tahiti," which was really shocking for us. And in hindsight, we've learned that the people who should support you don't always support you, or don't support you the way you think they should. And I think it comes down to several reasons. I think one, people, first off, don't know how to respond to you. Like you say, oh, I'm going to quit my 6-figure career job and I'm going to go buy a boat and sail away, who you don't even know how to sail. I think people don't know how to respond to that. Secondly, I think people get triggered and dare I even say jealous. So maybe there's someone who deep down they would love to travel the world, but they don't have the guts to put the plan together and actually do it. Like there's nothing special about us. We don't have any financial specialties that someone else doesn't have. The only thing different about us is we had a dream. We wrote down the goals. We said we were going to do it, and we weren't taking no for an answer, and we're not going to fail. That's the only thing that makes us special, is that we said we were going to do it and we did it. And so when I say talk to your people, but don't talk to everyone, you have to be careful who you share this dream with, because the people who tell you, oh, well, that might not work out, or, have you thought about this, or what happens when this happens? Sometimes people just aren't going to be in your corner. Sure, there's loved ones who are concerned about you, and those are valid, but the friends and others who are just
trying to talk you out of
it for the simple reason that they maybe don't understand, or that they're triggered or jealous, you just got to be careful who you talk to.
Yeah, good advice. One question here from Christine is a lifestyle question. I'm always thinking about this, right? Because you can't just hop out to the gym, and it goes back to the intentional theme that you mentioned earlier. So Christine wants to know, how do you keep up with health and fitness? That's number one. And then how is your dog on board the boat? How do you manage getting the dog off the boat to use the restroom? What about during passage? Do you put grass in the front of the trampoline? Like, tell us a little bit about those two aspects of it.
Yeah,
so we're going to get to the dog in one of our
next slides. So we live an ocean to table lifestyle. So we're spearing our fish, and within a couple of hours, it's on our plate, which is pretty incredible. I'm
at least in the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas, yeah. I'm ashamed that it took me over 31 years to realize how much I love spearfishing, because that is like my favorite thing to do ever.
So, I can't get her out of the water.
So to the point where our freezer is full and we don't need anymore. I'm like, let me just find someone to donate this fish to. So first of all, we're eating really healthy. We cut out a lot of that processed foods. Sometimes in the Bahamas, fruits and vegetables are kind of scarce. So we get it when we can, but we get a lot of exercise, swimming in the water. We do beach runs. We try to work out on the boat.
I've lost like 50 pounds since getting on the boat full time. So like, I was the heaviest I ever was prior to boat life. So, and probably the most unhealthy, living the typical, Chick-fil-A lunch and whatever the case may be. But yeah, in boat life, you just seem like you don't have, at least when you're in the Bahamas, you don't have DoorDash or anything like that to rely on. So you're really eating what you cook, and a lot of times that's only fresh things. Or
I will say that sometimes I feel like we should be moving more than we do, especially if we have like back-to-back passages, or I don't know, days where it's gloomy or something. Your steps to the bathroom are much shorter than they would be in a house. So you really do need to be intentional about getting that movement in, whether it's running the beach or walk or swim or whatever the case is. But we don't feel like we've really missed out on any opportunities to work out.
I could certainly work out more if I wanted to.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get some swim paddles for when we go back.
I have found, at least in the Leopard 45, that the D-ring that attaches to the rope on the davit, so on the winch, is the perfect space for a TRX, because you have the space behind it and you can do pull-ups. And anyway, so planning to see it. I don't know where that is on the 44, but I've turned my boat into a little like circuit training machine.
That's cool. I mean, I think if you want to exercise, you can exercise. Like, don't let a boat be the reason.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we find ourselves going to the beach and running beach. I mean, you run a mile on beach sand, it's like running 5 miles on land, right? I mean, so we find ourselves running quite a bit on the beach whenever there's good weather or whenever there's a nice beach. And of course, Dixie loves that as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that slide.
Great. So we have, I think, 3 slides left in about 6 minutes. So I think we're in good shape.
All right, we got to get to it.
We got to skedaddle. Okay, number 7, it's pretty obvious. Take a running leap. This was just after we had gotten married. We were honeymooning at Honeymoon Harbor. So just acknowledge the fear. And are we still there? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I might have dropped for a second, but we're back. Yeah.
So just acknowledge the fear and go for it. It's never the right time. You'll never be in the perfect financial situation. There's never the perfect scenario. So just go for it.
So the next slide is about income. And we have these in order based on how we are currently making income. We have multiple streams of income where we are able to pay for this lifestyle. But we're treating this YouTube channel and everything that we're doing very much like a startup right now. And one of the ways that we are able to cover costs is chartering. Now, chartering, I could have a whole hour conversation just on chartering alone. But if you want to be an owner operator, you can 100% live this lifestyle, doing charters 1 to 2 weeks a month and live this lifestyle very, very comfortably. It will cover your costs. We are currently doing that. We do not advertise it. It's all word of mouth because we don't do this full time. Our goal is to grow our YouTube channel and to do that full time. That is our passion. But we have people on the boat 1 to 2 weeks a month that are looking to learn about this lifestyle. It's not a traditional charter. It is an experience, as we call it. So we have people come on board who want additional hours to their captain's license for Emily and I to sign off on, or they want to find out if they're maybe in the getting ready to make a purchase and they want to just make sure they want to have a week on board to make sure that living on the boat is for them. People are going through, and like this picture we have in the bottom right hand corner here is Christy. Her and her daughter just joined us. Christy's going through all her ASA classes right now and getting ready to make a catamaran purchase. And she wanted to come spend a week and just make sure that that was the right thing for her to do. And in fact, Emily and I did this prior ourselves with 2 different times. We did a week each on an owner operated charter with a friend of ours that was doing this in the Bahamas. And it was like when you left, you started crying.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I've got to do this. And so that's one way that you can certainly cover your cost by doing this. You just get your captain's license, insurance, and you get a foreign charter permit in the Bahamas, and you can run charters all year long. Just real quickly, content creation. Emily has a content creation business called Anchored in Media, where we are creating content for other companies. So we push that pretty hard on the side, and we have income that way. Obviously, YouTube, social media, and we are really excited to launch brand merchandise coming in the next couple of weeks. So we do that. We have one of our 2 properties we turned into an Airbnb. We sold my property. We have Emily's on Airbnb, and it does really well for us. We are both licensed captains. We did that before we left the dock full time. And so from time to time, we do get gigs where we are able to use that license, and it does create an income for us. We also do affiliate programs through, push that through social medias. And I'm here to tell you guys that with Starlink in 2023, working remote from any possibilities is 110% viable option. Starlink has been amazing. And we can't tell you enough that if you're going to buy a boat, you want Starlink on it.
Yes, but we have to move on. So let's talk about boating with a dog. So Dixie is a 6-year-old Australian Shepherd. She has loved boat life since I moved to Florida. I always took her out on friends' boats whenever we'd have the opportunity. So she loved that. That being said, she is a great dog and she will not go to the bathroom in the house. And once she realized the boat was her house, she would not go. So that was actually a little bit of a struggle for us. We tried the grass pad. People said pee on the grass pad, which I'm embarrassed to say we did that. She wouldn't look at it. So eventually we would just take her up.
We try like 10 different grass pads, like including real sod.
Yeah. We would take her up to the front on the trampoline and say, go potty, go potty. I actually have a short form video I'm posting about this today if we run out of time. So eventually she held her number 2 for 4 days. We gave her a laxative. She finally went. We gave her lots of praise and peanut butter, and she has no problem now. Like, we can literally open the door and say, go potty. She runs up there, does her business, and like all is wonderful for her. We take her to land as much as possible.
We do take her to land as Emily just said, as much as possible, which typically can be multiple times a day. But storms and so forth can make that very difficult. So
she is scared of thunder. When it thunders, she gets nervous and she'll snuggle up beside us, but otherwise she does great.
So, and then as far as crossings go, dogs are like people, they will get seasick as well. And I'm happy to announce that the only time that Dixie has been seasick is the same time that Emily's been seasick. So she handles the boat just as well as Emily.
Thank you. Which is twice.
Yeah, twice. So and it was really bad conditions. So it's unfortunate, but it's just part of the lifestyle.
First adventure.
So real quickly, one of the questions that we got, hey, I'm getting ready to buy my boat. What would be a first adventure to go on? And I can't think of a better round trip than 145 nautical miles to Bimini. Because of the Gulf Stream, you would want to sail from Fort Lauderdale to Miami and then cross from Miami to Bimini. And Bimini is a phenomenal place. And this is the Sapona shipwreck, which is just off of Bimini. We have a YouTube video on it, one of the early videos that we did. And we can't wait to get back to Bimini. We did not go this past year with our boat. We actually went on one of those charters that I mentioned. But this was just an awesome, awesome trip. And it's a very, very easy trip to do from Fort Lauderdale and Miami.
Yeah, it's great. All daytime, no nighttime sailing.
Yeah.
Great way to get some experience under your belt. So there are a few questions in the chat that we did not get to, which is always a good sign of like great conversation along the way, great content. Two ways for folks to get those answered. You can send an email to Katie. We'll route them to Emily and Cole, or you could reach out directly via their social media. So I want to thank you both for taking some time out of your life to share your adventure and your experience. And for all the folks who joined us, appreciate them taking the time to do that too. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick, Chris, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So shoot us a message on Instagram is the easiest thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. See you next time.